The best SaaS companies on social have one thing in common. They have a fully built out content ecosystem. And today I'm going to walk you through what a content ecosystem is in detail, give you 3 real world examples, and teach you exactly how to build out your own content ecosystem. So what that progression would look like from start to finish if you're an early stage SaaS founder. Now, why should you trust me on this? Well, I've helped 30 plus SaaS CEOs over the past 15 months launch their own founder-led content motion through my agency Compounds. And prior to that, I was head of social at Triple Whale, another e-com infrastructure SaaS company where I helped build out their entire social motion, essentially building out this content ecosystem approach. And at Compound, we post about 150 to 200 plus assets per week across all our clients with a lot of visibility into what's working, what's not, trends that are occurring on LinkedIn, on X, and other social platforms that we use. And honestly, I've used social content and founder-led content in particular to build my agency pretty much from scratch and keep us at or near capacity since we've started. So I have a good idea of what works and what doesn't in this whole social content game for B2B companies, specifically with SaaS. And like I said, the best SaaS companies on social have a content ecosystem, and building one of these out gives you the feeling of being everywhere. And your target customer can't go more than 1 to 2 swipes on social without seeing something from your company. And as a result, you'll start getting more inbound from social because your customers just see you everywhere, and your outbound motion will likely start working better because there's that familiarity built up from seeing you on social. So whereas before, it might have been just a random LinkedIn message that ends up in your prospect's inbox or in your prospect's email inbox, now with the content ecosystem built out and them having seen you everywhere, they're more likely to reply. So today, like I said, I'm going to walk you through what a content ecosystem is, 3 real world examples, how to build one out, and by the end of this, you should feel confident in how to implement this motion with your own company. Now, what exactly is a content ecosystem? What is this motion that gives you the feeling of being everywhere? Well, it has 3 parts. 1 is founder-led content, 2 is an employee-led content, 3 is company-led content. Now, like you see on the screen here, companies that lose on social and wonder why organic LinkedIn content just doesn't drive any demand for their product typically are stuck focusing on company-led content. So they're posting from the brand account. This might have worked 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. But what you don't realize is that brand accounts in 2024, and if you're watching this in 2025 or 2026, it's likely still the case, brand accounts are very hard to grow. It's almost like posting into the void, especially if you have little to no brand recognition as an early stage, like seed stage, Series A company. Even big companies like Airbnb have shifted more of their efforts on their PR front to posting and announcing launches from their founders' accounts. One sec. Now, companies that win on social lean into founder-led content. If you're new around here on my channel, founder-led content is essentially posting content from your founder's LinkedIn page. This works because people want to engage with people, and by posting from your founder's account, you can establish them as authority, build trust, and again, you'll get inbound leads, and you'll also make your outbound more effective. So founder-led content is sort of table stakes for winning on social as a SaaS company in 2024. That said, there's a level beyond this. So the companies that really dominate on social, the ones that you feel like you can't go a few scrolls without seeing, they're everywhere, they're really omnipresent. That feeling of omnipresence that so many founders or so many marketers want to establish for their company, these companies have it, and they do it by nailing founder-led content and then also nailing either employee-led content, company-led content, or a combination of the 2 or the 3. And in short, a well-constructed content ecosystem increases the surface area for opportunities for your ICP to interact with your brand. So if you're only posting from your brand account, you're not going to get seen much. If you're only posting from your founder's account, that is fine, and you'll have a lot of success with that. And a lot of the clients you work with at Compound are running that motion and kind of just stick with that for bandwidth constraints. But if you can nail founder-led content and then start to layer in more members of your C-suite or more team members on your team, that's redundant, but you get what I mean. You're going to be able to increase that surface area for people to interact with your brand, get more touch points, and it's just going to make your whole marketing motion, whether it be the content motion, your outbound, or other pieces of it, a lot more effective. Now, like I said, I want to run you through 3 examples because me talking about the broad definition, you probably understand roughly what it is, but what does this look like in practice? And the first time I really experienced the power of a content ecosystem was during my time as head of social at Triple Whale. And at Triple Whale, we had multiple members of the team active on LinkedIn and X. So myself, our CMO Rabba, and our head of brand Alexa, along with a few other team members that were active here and there, but we were probably the most consistent of the group of posting content to social media. We had a dialed brand presence ran by yours truly. That was a really fun time of just being chronically online and ripping Twitter replies and memes memes and kind of shit posting. I feel like that was like the last hurrah of like brand accounts really working well in B2B SaaS, but it was a fun time. And we also had two of our co-founders active on social as well, mostly around product launches. They weren't as active as like posting every single day, but whenever we would launch something or a feature highlight or a case study, they were pretty active on social. So we had employee-led content, we had the company-led content, and we had the founder-led content pretty dialed in. And again, as a result, you couldn't scroll far on LinkedIn or X without seeing something from the Triple Whale team, the brand account. And there's also the influencer marketing motion, which is a whole different topic in and of itself, but it really creates this echo chamber of, again, people can't escape you. Another example here, and I've actually recorded a full like in-depth case study on Beehiiv social strategy, but I think they're worth highlighting again here as an example of a content ecosystem. They're really executing it to perfection. And it starts with their founder and CEO, Tyler Denk. He has a very consistent social presence on LinkedIn, on X, and he also has a newsletter that he writes every single week called Big Desk Energy. So he has a consistent content cadence as a founder. Again, leaning into that founder-like content, it really humanizes the brand and builds trust with Beehiiv's audience because they can really access the founder directly on social. And he's done a really good job of bringing the audience along with him as he's building this company. Like they just raised their Series B. And crazy enough, because he's built this sort of cult following on social, they were actually able to raise over $1 million of funding directly from their social audience. So if you want any proof that social content can work, that's it. Their team is also hyper responsive on the timeline. Like the example I give here is go and tweet, should I use Beehiiv or ConvertKit? Or what do you think about Beehiiv versus ConvertKit? And just wait about 30 seconds. I'm willing to bet that someone from the Beehiiv team is going to be in your replies. The same thing applies on LinkedIn. And their brand account is also locked in with a strong combination of product education, feature launches and highlights and case studies, and then also trending humor and more top of funnel stuff that gets a lot of engagement. And like I said, brand accounts really aren't doing that great generally, but I think one that is still executing this strategy very well is Beehiiv. They're one of the few brand accounts that I actively follow on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and they're doing a great job of this. But again, this combination of Tyler's content, of the employees being very active and responsive on social, and then the brand account having a sound, consistent strategy gives them this feeling of being everywhere. They're probably the closest to what I felt being at Triple Whale. Again, I was on the inside there, so for me, of course, it felt like we were everywhere. But from the outside looking in, Beehiiv is probably the closest company to that in running this content ecosystem strategy to perfection. So they're a great example to study. Now, example number 2 is Fermat. Fermat is another SaaS company in the Shopify ecosystem, so kind of similar playing field to Triple Whale. And they just raised a Series A, and they're dominating the content game. And again, it's really not a surprise because actually my former CMO at Triple Whale is over there now, along with my head of brand at Triple Whale is now director of marketing at Fermat. So it really isn't a surprise that they're winning on social because they have a really stacked team. Now, when we look at the components of a content ecosystem, their founder socials are pretty dialed, and actually they're a compound client, so we support them on their content output for LinkedIn across their co-founder Rishabh and Shreyas. And like I said, Fermat also has a pretty insane roster of marketing talent, and a lot of them have followings of their own on social, whether it be LinkedIn or X. So they're posting pretty actively, and each of these personalities contributes to this feeling of omnipresence that's characteristic of all successful content ecosystems. And just like founder-led content humanizes the brand, this front-facing team that's very accessible to the audience on social also humanizes the brand even more. Companies don't want to engage with a faceless corporation. Again, this is why brand accounts really aren't working that well. And I'm not just saying this because I do founder-led content for the agency. If brand account content worked really well, our agency would do that. But it's just not working that well for early stage companies in 2024. And this is why. So again, they don't want to engage with faceless corporations. They want to engage with friends that they trust. And this founder-led content and making founders accessible on social, along with having personalities on the team very active, gives them that feeling of like, hey, these people aren't just shilling their software. They're actually trying to add value and be accessible to me on social. And with Fermat in particular, their brand account really isn't a focal point. Like Beehiiv has a really dialed in brand account strategy and it works well for them. For Fermat, they don't really have a brand account strategy. We tried it early on, but the juice just wasn't worth the squeeze. And the founder-led content along with the team-led content was just working so well. So those are the two components. So again, like I said earlier, when you're looking at building out a content ecosystem, you can do all three, but really for most companies, what I would recommend is nailing founder-led content and then also nailing the employee-led content. And Fermat is an example of a company that's done that very well. Now, the third example I want to run through here isn't necessarily a SaaS company, but they are marketing to B2B marketers and SaaS marketers. So it's a very similar target audience. And I think it encapsulates this idea well. And there's one like nuance here that I really want to call out that I'll get into in a second. But Exit 5 is a media company for SaaS marketers. And it's no surprise that their content motion is also dialed and their founder-led content is also dialed because their founder, Dave Gerhardt, literally wrote the book on founder-led content. It's called Founder Brand. I'd highly recommend reading it if you're into this sort of thing. And Dave has a LinkedIn audience himself of 167,000 followers at the time of recording this video, and he posts daily on the platform, like super consistent. And he's been able to build a 7-figure media company off the back of that content. Now, it's not like it's this crazy hack. He's been posting for years and building trust for years. So it's not like, oh, you're going to post for 90 days and build a 7-figure media company. But the point is, when you let content compound, it works really well and it's really powerful. So Dave has an audience of 167,000 followers, but it's not just Dave who's propagating the Exit 5 brand on LinkedIn. What's cool about them is that they've built this sort of supporting cast of content creators that they're cultivating around Dave. I recently started following their marketing manager, Matthew, on LinkedIn as well about a month or two ago. And they've actually been able to build up his audience to about just over 5,000 followers. And the approach here is similar to Fermat in that they have several personalities that are active on social, whether it be the founder, Dave, or Matt, the marketing manager, or a few other team members on their team. But what's different here and what's interesting to note is how Exit 5 is more so building influencers from within rather than just plucking them from the timeline to join their team. So a lot of that marketing talent that Fermat has, they got them when they're already hot, which is a great approach. And again, they've done a great job. It's insane the talent they've been able to attract for their marketing team and their company as a whole. But another approach that you can use is if your founder has a strong personal brand, as you start to gain momentum there, you can actually parlay that into supporting other team members and building up their personal brands. Like Matt's been posting amazing content, but undoubtedly it helps that Dave has this massive audience as well, and they're able to play off each other and sort of accelerate the rate at which Matt grows his audience and essentially build his account into another media property for the company. So neither approach is the right way, whether you get talent from the timeline and just kind of bring them in, or if you invest in someone early and kind of build them up internally. The point is, again, that you can build this employee-led content motion once you have that momentum from the founder-led content. Now, those are 3 real-life examples. What I want to do now is run you through like the steps that I would use to build this motion out for your own SaaS company. And the first thing I would do is start with founder-led content. This is the obvious first step. I'll link a playbook on the screen right now that you can watch. It's over an hour long. It's like super in-depth, gives you a sample content calendar, everything that you would need to know to launch this. But I would start there. Like again, if you're starting from zero and you don't really have a built-out content motion, if you just get your founder active on LinkedIn and posting consistently and building them up as an authority that people trust in your niche, you're gonna get yourself 80% and 90% of the way there. And most companies will be good with that. Now, as you build momentum with your founder-led content, you can start to layer in other team members. So this could be more formal, so having an agency write for them. Some of our clients like will launch their CEO or launch their CMO or one of their co-founders. And then once they're cruising, they'll layer in other people. So again, say we launched their CEO and we have their LinkedIn content going and it's performing well, they're getting leads, like, okay, this is sick. How do we level this up? We'll then layer in maybe their CMO or their COO or another member of the C-suite in most cases. Or if you're not going to go that route, just encourage them to post more content. So if you have someone on your team who's been kind of wanting to get into content creation and maybe didn't have the time before or just wasn't convinced that it would work, once you've proven this motion out with your CEO or one of your founders, you can sort of encourage that person to start posting more and get them on a consistent cadence. Again, whether you're having someone produce content for them or if you're just encouraging them to post more. Now, the most important factor in deciding who to dedicate content resources to is understanding who on your team wants to post content. So sure, you might have a VP of engineering who could be a great subject matter expert to build an audience for on LinkedIn, but if he scoffs at the idea of posting and doesn't want anything to do with it, it's going to be tough to make that work even if you outsource it. So again, you could bring in an agency, but if there's no interest in posting content, I've run into this so many times where founders say they want to do content, but they want to be totally hands-off and like not have any input and just kind of run it on autopilot. It sounds great in theory, but even when you outsource your LinkedIn content or your social content, it still is hands-on in a way when you're giving feedback or pitching ideas, or again, just being involved in the creative process. If that next person you're going to layer in is like, dude, I don't like social content, I don't want to have anything to do with this, it's just kind of stupid, move on to someone else. And for a lot of the companies I work with, the next logical step from the CEO or one of the founders, whatever founder you launched the founder-led content motion for, the next logical step is to maybe the CMO, the head of marketing, or one of the content people. And the reason why this tends to work is they already tend to get content. So it's easier to build momentum. You don't really have to convince them as much. Likely they were one of the people that were pushing the founder to post content in the first place. So Fermat's a great example of this. A lot of their most active team members are in the marketing org. So it's the CMO, the director of marketing, their VP of growth. And I saw this trend at Triple Whale as well. Again, the most active people on the timeline when I was there was my head of brand, my CMO, myself being the head of social. So when you're thinking about launching employee-led content and layering in that part of the motion, you need to be practical here. So start with one of the founders and then move on to other folks that are relevant to your ICP and can post content that will attract them. Because again, like if I'm posting content for social media managers, but I'm trying to sell into e-commerce founders, that doesn't really do much for my company. So you want to get people who are posting relevant content, but also keep in mind their willingness to post. And then finally, you want to layer in the brand account. And from what I'm seeing in our client accounts and hearing anecdotally from peers in the industry, this will likely have the least impact. But if you are going to make your push from the brand account, I would recommend hiring internally for it. It's really hard to outsource this to an agency and expect it to go really, really well. Early on when I started Compound, a lot of people will come to me saying like, hey, we want to do what Triple Whale did. And we worked with a few brand accounts early on, and it's just really hard to do unless you're chronically online all the time, which is pretty much what I was doing at Triple Whale. The founder-led content and employee-led content is a lot easier to get a consistent motion in without having to just be chronically online on the timeline all day looking for trends and memes and all this stuff. But if you're going to make a brand account work, I would recommend hiring someone internally. I think an example of a company that's doing this really well is Beehiiv. They have a social media manager internally. She's amazing. Shout out to Bella Rose. She's killing it. And the reason why the brand account is doing so well is because they have someone that's fully dedicated to that part of the motion. And we'll do brand account stuff for some of our clients right now, but a lot of the times, like the main focus is that founder-led content. And then we'll supplement it with just posting some case studies or feature highlights or more bottom of funnel stuff on the brand account that just shows that like, hey, this account is active if someone lands on it. But the majority of the ROI from this content ecosystem motion is going to come from founder-led content and then layering in the personalities or employee-led content to give you that feeling of being everywhere. So again, to recap, step one, launch all your founders on social. So in this case, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the platform that I would recommend for B2B companies. X can work if you have LinkedIn dialed in already, but I would start with LinkedIn. Step two is launch all the other C-suites and leadership that want to be active. Again, you don't want to force them. It's not going to really end well. But if they want to be active, then there's likely at least one or two or maybe three of them that want to be more active on social. Get them active on social, whether it's working with an agency or just having them post their own stuff. Step three here is add a focus on a brand account outside of basic product updates and case studies if you need to. Again, this likely isn't going to be the biggest driver of results, but if you have the resources to and you want to just really button this up, a brand account can be effective once you have the founder-led content in motion and the employee-led content in motion. And that's really it. It's not that complex, but it does take time to both see the results of your output and to get buy-in from your team. So we know that social content takes time, and it's obvious that like, hey, we're not going to grow 10,000 followers in week one or month one, and we're not going to start getting a bunch of leads in week one. You should see signs of life pretty early on, especially if you're working with someone who knows what they're doing. But again, we know this takes time. It also takes time to get people bought into the process. So if you're trying to get your team members, especially your C-suite, to post on social, it's going to take a bit of time to show them like, hey, this founder-led stuff is working. We should try this with you. So I'd recommend testing this for at least 90 days. And 90 days is really a minimum, like baseline, like bare minimum. A lot of companies that win on social dedicate their resources to this stuff for 6 months, 12 months. Like before I started Compound, and I talk about how like we use founder-led content to keep ourselves at capacity or have a wait list. The reason why that happened and worked out the way it did was because I was posting social content for years before launching the agency, and I had built up a ton of trust. So 90 days will get you a lot of the way there, but it takes time. So commit to it. But I promise, if you nail this, you're gonna have an unfair advantage over any competitor that you're going up against. I just think about how sick it would be to dominate your space on social and just be top of mind in your customers literally all the time. They can't escape you. Like again, using the example of Beehiiv, I can't go on social without seeing stuff from them. When I was at Triple Whale, the same can be said for our audience. Same thing with like Exit 5. I'm a member because I've seen Dave's content and I've seen their team's content on LinkedIn, and I find it very valuable. So this stuff works if you commit to it. So build a content ecosystem and you'll pretty much live rent-free in your ICP's head. Now, again, I would start with founder-led content. And if you want to see my full playbook on how to put this together, one, drop a like down below if you enjoyed this video and share it with a founder that you know that's running a SaaS company. But two, if you want to build out this motion, check out the video that's on screen right now. I've put together a full, pretty much hour-long masterclass on my entire process that we use for our clients at Compound. So you'll go over how to position your account and pick the right topics, how to set up your LinkedIn profile the right way, what to post daily, so a sample content calendar. And if that sounds helpful to you, Check it out there. I'll see you in the next video, and I appreciate you watching.